In the heart of a vast, ancient forest, there stood a dilapidated cabin known as Whispering Pines. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing chilling tales of strange sounds and shadows flitting between the trees. Yet for Sarah, an aspiring writer seeking solitude, it was the perfect retreat to ignite her creativity. She arrived just as dusk painted the sky in deep purples and fiery oranges. The cabin loomed ahead, its windows dark and hollow, inviting yet foreboding. With a determined breath, she pushed open the creaky door, the hinges groaning like a warning. Inside, dust motes danced in the fading light. The cabin had an eerie charm: rustic furniture, a stone fireplace, and shelves lined with forgotten books. As night fell, she lit a fire, its flickering glow casting long shadows that seemed to twist and writhe, making the atmosphere both cozy and unsettling. That first night, Sarah settled into a comfortable routine, jotting down ideas for her novel while the wind howled outside. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Occasionally, she thought she heard whispers carried on the wind, but dismissed them as mere figments of her imagination, a trick of the night. On the second night, sleep eluded her. The whispers grew louder, weaving through the trees like an insistent melody. "Come find us." Panic seized her, and she slipped outside into the cold night, flashlight in hand. The moon hung low, illuminating the forest with an eerie glow. As she ventured deeper, the whispers morphed into coherent words, clear and urgent. "Come find us." Her heart raced, and she turned back, racing towards the cabin. But the woods seemed to conspire against her. Branches snagged at her clothes, roots twisted underfoot, and shadows danced just beyond her vision. Inside, she barricaded the door and tried to calm her racing heart. Hours passed, but the whispers echoed through her mind. It felt as though the trees themselves were alive, yearning to tell her a story, one she didn't want to hear. The next morning, Sarah resolved to leave. But when she awoke, her belongings lay scattered around the cabin, and her car keys were nowhere to be found. Frantic, she searched every corner, her heart pounding as she realized it was as if the forest had swallowed them whole. As night fell once more, the whispers returned, more insistent than ever. Now, she could almost make out faces in the shadows, pale figures trapped in the trees, their expressions twisted in despair. Panic turned to dread as realization washed over her. The stories about the cabin weren't mere folklore. They were warnings. The woods were hungry. Desperate, Sarah gathered her courage and stepped outside. This time, she called into the darkness. "Who are you? What do you want?" The forest fell silent. Then the whispers swirled back, echoing her question. "What do you want?" In that moment, she understood. The cabin fed on fear and longing, trapping souls who had once sought refuge. She had come looking for inspiration, but she had awakened something far older and darker. With newfound determination, she returned to the cabin and faced the fireplace. She gathered the old books from the shelves, their pages yellowed and crumbling, and set them ablaze. The flames crackled to life, casting a warm glow that fought against the encroaching shadows. But as the fire roared higher, the whispers grew frantic, the shadows twisting into anguished shapes. Suddenly, the door burst open, and the forest surged in, a tide of darkness. The figures she had glimpsed before now emerged fully, their faces contorted in pain. The air crackled with energy, and Sarah's heart raced. "I release you," she shouted, her voice echoing in the chaos. The flames leapt, and the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of despair merging into one. The figures began to dissolve, absorbed by the fire, their whispers fading into the night like smoke in the wind. As dawn broke, the cabin stood silent, the air still heavy with the scent of burnt paper. Sarah found her keys lying innocently on the table, untouched. She left the cabin behind, vowing never to return. As she drove away, the whispers faded into memory, but she could still feel the weight of the forest pressing against her. A reminder that some stories should remain untold, and some woods should be left unexplored. The ancient trees watched her depart, their secrets safely hidden once more, waiting for the next curious soul to wander into the Whispering Pines. Nestled at the edge of a dense forest, the last house on Maple Hill stood isolated and forlorn. Its paint had long since peeled, revealing the gray wood beneath, and the garden was overgrown with weeds and wildflowers that danced in the wind. The locals whispered about the place, claiming it was haunted. It had been abandoned for years, ever since a series of mysterious disappearances began to plague the town. One crisp autumn afternoon, Julia, a determined journalist with a penchant for uncovering the truth, decided to investigate the house. Armed with her notebook, camera, and a flashlight, she parked her car at the bottom of the hill and began the trek up the overgrown path. As she climbed, the wind rustled the leaves, creating an eerie symphony that seemed to guide her steps. When she reached the front porch, she paused, staring at the warped door. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, echoing in the silence of the house. Inside, dust coated every surface, and cobwebs hung like veils from the corners. The air was thick with the scent of mold and decay. Julia switched on her flashlight, illuminating the faded wallpaper, which depicted a once vibrant floral pattern now dulled by time. She made her way through the narrow hallway, the floorboards groaning under her weight, as if protesting her intrusion. In the living room, old furniture lay draped in white sheets. A heavy, ornate mirror hung on the wall, its surface clouded. Julia approached it, intrigued by its grandeur despite the layers of grime. As she wiped the glass with her sleeve, she caught a glimpse of movement behind her, a fleeting shadow darting past the doorframe. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. Shaking off the chill that ran down her spine, she resumed her exploration, moving into the kitchen. The room was cluttered with forgotten utensils and a rusty stove. A tattered journal lay open on the table, its pages yellowed and brittle. Curiosity piqued, Julia leaned closer. The entries chronicled the life of the last resident, a woman named Clara who had lived alone in the house. The final entry sent a shiver through Julia. The whispers are getting louder. I fear they want something from me. Chilled but intrigued, Julia flipped through the pages, discovering more entries filled with Clara's growing paranoia. The final entry was dated the night Clara vanished. Julia felt an inexplicable connection to the woman. Clara's fears echoed in her own heart, amplifying her determination to uncover the truth. As she continued her investigation, the shadows seemed to deepen around her, and the whispers, soft at first, began to rise again, sibilant and insistent. "Leave," they urged, their voices barely audible, like a breeze rustling through dry leaves. Ignoring the mounting sense of dread, Julia climbed the staircase to the second floor. The hallway was lined with closed doors. She hesitated at the first one, then turned the knob and stepped inside. The bedroom was as forlorn as the rest of the house, with a dust-covered bed and a wardrobe that had seen better days. As she rummaged through the drawers, she found a small locket. Inside, a faded photograph of Clara smiled back at her. Julia's heart ached. She felt the weight of the woman's loneliness and fear. Just then, the whispers intensified, echoing off the walls. "Help us." Startled, Julia dropped the locket, its clatter breaking the oppressive silence. She turned to leave, but found the door had swung shut on its own. Panic surged as she pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers transformed into urgent cries, filling the room with a cacophony of desperation. "Help us. Don't leave us." Julia's breath quickened as she stumbled back. The shadows in the room thickened, swirling around her. The mirror on the wall began to ripple, reflecting not just the room but scenes of Clara's life, her laughter, her solitude, and then the darkness that descended upon her. In a moment of clarity, Julia understood that the house wasn't just haunted by Clara's spirit. It was a prison for all the souls lost to the woods, their lives intertwined with her own. They were reaching out, seeking liberation from the grip of the malevolent force that resided there. Summoning her courage, Julia began to speak aloud. "I'm here to help you. Tell me what you need. The whispers quieted, and she felt an overwhelming sadness fill the air. Slowly, the door creaked open, and Julia stepped back into the hallway, her heart pounding. She continued down the corridor, drawn to the last door at the end, which stood slightly ajar. Pushing it open, she entered a small, dimly lit room. In the center stood an old rocking chair, and on the floor lay a tattered quilt. The walls were adorned with sketches, crude but hauntingly beautiful depictions of the forest and the figures that wandered through it. As she examined the sketches, Julia noticed a pattern. The figures were all women, their faces twisted in anguish. Suddenly, the whispers returned, now urgent and pleading. Free us. We cannot leave. Realizing what she needed to do, Julia took a deep breath and began to speak, channeling all her strength and determination. I release you from this place. You are not bound to this house anymore. As the words left her lips, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the light from her flashlight. The air crackled with energy, and the shadows began to swirl violently. Julia felt a pull, as if the very fabric of the room was shifting. The whispers rose to a deafening crescendo. Thank you, they cried, voices intertwining in a beautiful harmony. The rocking chair began to sway, and the sketches shimmered with light. One by one, the faces of the lost women appeared, glowing softly in the darkness, their expressions transforming from fear to gratitude. With a final surge of energy, the figures began to dissolve into motes of light, swirling around Julia before shooting out into the open air. The house trembled, the walls shaking as if releasing years of pent-up sorrow. When the storm of energy subsided, the house stood still. The sunlight began to filter through the dusty windows, illuminating the once dark corners. Julia felt a profound sense of peace wash over her, and the oppressive weight that had hung in the air lifted. As she made her way downstairs, the whispers had faded, replaced by a serene silence. Stepping outside, she breathed in the fresh air, feeling a lightness in her heart. The house on Maple Hill, once a source of dread, now felt like a sanctuary. Julia knew she had not only uncovered the truth, but had freed the spirits trapped within those walls. With one last look at the house, she turned away, knowing she would carry the stories of Clara and the others with her forever. The forest, once shrouded in darkness, now felt welcoming, alive with the sounds of nature. As she drove away, Julia smiled, grateful for the adventure that had turned into something profoundly meaningful. The last house on Maple Hill was no longer a place of fear, but a reminder of the strength of compassion and the power of release. On the outskirts of a small town, shrouded in thick mist, lay an ancient grove known only to a few. Rumors swirled among the townsfolk about strange occurrences and disappearances tied to this mystical place. They said it was haunted by the spirits of those who had been lost within its depths, unable to find their way back. For most, the grove was a source of fear. For Amelia, it was an invitation. Amelia was a history student, fascinated by folklore and the hidden stories of the past. When she heard about the grove, her curiosity piqued. Determined to uncover its secrets, she packed her backpack with her notebooks, a flashlight, and a camera, setting out one gray afternoon to explore the forgotten grove. As she approached the entrance, a gnarled tree with twisted branches seemed to loom over her, its bark rough and ancient. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, but Amelia pressed on, her heart racing with anticipation. The deeper she went, the more the sunlight struggled to pierce the canopy of leaves above, casting the ground in shadow. The path twisted and turned, each step taking her further from the safety of the outside world. Strange sounds filled the air, whispers that danced on the edges of her hearing, rustling leaves that seemed to murmur secrets. She felt both exhilarated and uneasy, but kept moving, determined to document her findings. After an hour of wandering, she stumbled upon a clearing. In its center stood a massive stone archway, weathered by time and covered in moss. Amelia felt a pull toward it, as if the archway were calling her. She raised her camera, snapping pictures, her heart racing at the discovery. As she stepped closer, The whispers intensified, swirling around her like a breeze. She could almost make out words, beckoning her forward. "Help us," they seemed to say, luring her deeper into the grove. Suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled slightly. Startled, she stumbled back, feeling a strange energy coursing through the air. The archway shimmered as if it were alive, the stones vibrating softly. In a moment of instinct, Amelia reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. Instantly, a blinding light enveloped her, and she felt herself being pulled through the archway. When the light faded, she found herself in an otherworldly landscape. The sky was a vibrant hue, unlike anything she had ever seen, filled with swirling colors that defied description. Trees stretched high above her, their trunks twisted and adorned with luminescent flowers. Amelia stood in awe, her initial fear replaced by wonder. But as she took a step forward, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into a clearer voice. "You shouldn't be here," it warned. "Leave while you still can." Confusion washed over her. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "What do you want?" A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman dressed in flowing robes that seemed to ripple like water. Her hair flowed around her, shimmering in the strange light. "I am Alara," she said, her voice melodic yet tinged with sorrow. "You've entered the Grove of Echoes. It is a realm between worlds, where the lost seek solace, and the forgotten linger." "What do you mean, the lost?" Amelia asked, her curiosity piqued despite the foreboding atmosphere. Alara gestured toward the trees. "Those who enter the grove seeking something often find themselves trapped. They cannot find their way back to their world. They become echoes of their former selves, living in the shadows." The realization hit Amelia hard. "Is that what happened to them? The missing people from my town?" "Yes," Alara replied, her expression grave. "They were drawn here by the whispers, just as you were. They sought answers, closure, or even a way to escape their pain. But the grove feeds on their despair, trapping them in an endless cycle." A chill crept down Amelia's spine. "How can I help them?" she asked, feeling a surge of determination. "You must face the heart of the grove," Alara explained. "It lies beyond the archway, deep within. There, you will confront the source of the whispers. Only then can the lost find peace, and you may return home." Taking a deep breath, Amelia nodded. "I'll do it. I can't leave them trapped here." As they walked deeper into the grove, the air thickened with an unsettling energy. The whispers swirled around her, growing louder and more frantic. "Help us, please," they cried, echoing her resolve. Finally, they reached a massive tree at the center of the grove, its trunk gnarled and twisted. The air shimmered around it, pulsating with energy. It was here that the whispers seemed to converge, swirling around the tree like a tempest. "Stand before it," Alara instructed. "Speak your truth, and the heart will respond." With her heart pounding, Amelia stepped closer. She could feel the energy vibrating in her bones. "I'm here to help you," she shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. "You are not forgotten. You can find peace." The ground trembled, and the whispers began to coalesce into forms, faint silhouettes of the lost, their faces etched with sorrow and longing. They reached out to her, their voices merging into a haunting chorus. "We need to be freed, to remember who we were." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. "You have to remember your stories," she urged them. "Tell me who you are. Remember your names, your lives." One by one, the shadows began to shift, their faces coming into focus. She saw the faces of those who had vanished, their expressions caught between despair and hope. "I was Thomas," one said, his voice filled with regret. "I lost my way." "I was Clara," another whispered, tears in her eyes. "I was searching for my sister." Amelia took a deep breath, feeling their pain resonate within her. "You were loved. You were real," she urged. "You can let go of your sorrow. You don't have to be lost anymore." As she spoke, a warm light began to emanate from the heart of the tree, washing over the gathered souls. The shadows flickered, their forms becoming more solid, and the air filled with a soothing energy. Alara stepped forward, joining Amelia's plea. Remember who you are, embrace your memories, and release the pain. You are not bound to this place. The figures of the lost began to shimmer and dissolve, their anguish slowly replaced by a sense of peace. "Thank you," they whispered, their voices now harmonizing with the grove's gentle hum. "We remember." The air crackled with energy, and the ground beneath Amelia's feet pulsed rhythmically. Suddenly, the tree erupted in a burst of light, sending a wave of warmth throughout the grove. The echoes began to fade, merging into the light. In that moment, Amelia felt a deep connection to the spirits surrounding her. She knew they were finally free. "Go," she urged, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are not forgotten." As the last remnants of the lost souls dissolved into the light, Amelia felt a powerful surge of energy wash over her. The grove shifted around her, the whispers calming into a gentle breeze. The oppressive weight that had hung in the air lifted, and a sense of serenity settled over the grove. Alara turned to Amelia, her expression softening. "You have done well. The lost can finally rest, and you have proven yourself a true seeker of truth." But as the light dimmed, Amelia felt a sudden rush of fear. "What about me? Can I return home?" Alara nodded. "The archway will open for you. But remember, you carry their stories with you now. Share them so they will never be forgotten." As the grove began to shimmer and fade, Amelia sprinted toward the archway. The light enveloped her once more, and in an instant, she found herself back in the clearing where she had first entered. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the grove. Breathless and overwhelmed, Amelia glanced back at the archway, which now stood still, a mere shadow among the trees. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the stories she now held. With a newfound sense of purpose, she made her way back to town, ready to share what she had learned. The whispers of the grove had transformed into a symphony of hope, and she vowed to keep the memories alive. The forgotten would be remembered, and their stories would no longer be lost in the shadows. From that day forward, the grove became a place of reflection and reverence. Amelia shared the tales of the lost, ensuring they were woven into the fabric of her town's history. The whispers, once haunting, became a gentle reminder of the power of connection and the strength found in remembering. The grove, with its vibrant energy and haunting beauty, now stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of never forgetting those who came before.